Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to House of Footy. It's your boy Matt, and with me, I got a full house. I have Ray
Hey, what's up, guys?
and Gio.
That's good.
Today's we're doing a little bit of a different podcast as we'll be doing our EPL Player of the Season draft. But before we dive in, Ray, can you hit it off? If anyone wants to be able to hear or follow our podcast, how would they be able to do that?
Of course, as always, follow us. Don't forget to follow us on our social media, both on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle is at @house_of_footy. Also, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to us. We are on both Spotify and YouTube. And lastly, feel free to get in touch with us via email. We love hearing from you guys, and we want you guys getting involved. Our email is houseoffooty@hotmail.com.
Thank you, Ray.
Gio?
So, Gio, actually, before we get started on our podcast, I want to give you a 30-second clear out for you to isolate the top of the key. I know you're very happy after today's result. So please talk about how Manchester United have, again, re-secured a top four position in Champions League football for next season.
Never in doubt, boys. Never in doubt. I'm trolling. Always in doubt. Always in doubt. With Liverpool chasing our tails, always in doubt. But no. Me personally, I thought it was gonna be a much closer tie with Chelsea. They do have the players, but again, I think yes, Man U won 4-1, but Chelsea, it was more of a loss than a win for Man U. But like if you're looking at Chelsea's eyes, because they missed ample amount of opportunities that could have put them up 3-1 even in the first half. So I think it's more of a loss for Chelsea than more of a win for Man U. But hey, you take it, and now you can play that Fulham game a little bit more laid back. Rest some players, and then be ready to get some yellows at the FA Cup final. So hey, I can't be mad today. I cannot be mad.
You're probably in a very great mood, and Ray, I'm just going to kind of let you rest in peace, and we'll save your takes for later on. But the reason why we're doing today's draft is pretty much with that result as well, kind of put us in the position where both the Premier League title and the top four is secure. So we're going to kind of have a review in a little bit of a different way of who we think the best player in the EPL season has been, and go through a little bit of a draft style to kind of have it all sorted out. To confirm, in this draft, we are not drafting who we all think will win the PFA Player of the Year. We're drafting the players we think had the best season. It could be MVP, best player, best season, most impactful, whatever argument our draftees, the three of us, decide we want to be able to use, whatever criteria we want to be able to use, we will use. It's in essence, really, we're only picking Premier League players, but if you want to draw in kind of other competitions experience to kind of make your case, feel free to do so. But really, it is Premier League focused, as that's what majority of this podcast we have talked about. In essence, how this draft will work. It's going to be a serpentine draft, going from pick 15 to 1. So it'll be snake order, with the draft in reverse every single round. The twist of the draft really is that there will be vetoes. So what this means is that, for example, if I have the 15th pick and I take the one true legend, Billy Gilmore, a player I love with all my heart, and who may or may not be taken, may or may not be on my draft board, that means either Ray or Gio have the opportunity to veto that pick, which then puts Billy Gilmore back in the pool of players, and I now have to make another selection. So that's where the fun part is where we're collectively working together to create the best draft order of who we think is from 15 to 1 ranked being Premier League Player of the Season. But through the shenanigans of what we're going to be doing with the vetoes, we may be in a position where, it may not be as clean cut as we would want to. So we're competitively collaborating on our best list. So it's a little bit of a fun twist. How it work out, there's going to be 3 draft slots, as there are 3 draft managers between myself, Ray, and Gio. Is drafter C gets picked 15, 10, 9, 4, 3, as well as 1 veto. Drafter B gets picked 14, 11, 8, 5, 2, as well as 1 veto. And finally, drafter A gets to pick 13, 12, 7, 6, and 1, with 2 vetoes. The reason why they have 2 vetoes, that drafter A spot, and why maybe that might be everyone's favorite position because they get the 2 picks, is because is because you get to protect the first overall pick. For example, if you have your number 1 on your board, you have a second go around to still make sure that that player is in that position that you want. So you get a little leeway there, as well as, of course, you get the fewest top overall picks, really. So, in regards to, before we jump into the draft, before we get things started here, do either of my draft managers, other than myself, of course, have any questions before we kind of get into it? Ray, Gio? No? You guys good?
Okay. No, I'm good to go.
Perfect. So As the host, I arbitrarily have come to the decision of how we're going to choose which draft spot you get. Are you A, B, or C? To be able to get into that, so I have a little. This is something I think I still have. I'm going to use kind of the backup mirror. I feel like doing a makeup tutorial. So we're going to do the arbitrarily flip of the coin here. Okay. So I'm going to flip a coin, and I'm going to ask Gio. You're either going to call. Since this is a euro, is this a euro? Is this a euro or a British pound? I don't know. Anyway, so there are 2 and a bird at the end of the day. Gio, you're going to call 2 or a bird. If you get it right, you then decide the draft order. You can choose who gets first, second, and third. It's up to you. You get the full decision. If you get it wrong, Ray, you pick. I submit to the both of you. Just want to make sure that, if you do win, hey, I'm the one that ended up letting you do this. Just, Either way. Does that make sense? Okay, so Gio, I'm going to flip the coin and I need you to call it. And then I'll show it on the camera. So you have to kind of trust me here, okay? Why would I lie? Okay, 3. Very exciting. Okay, you got the bird. Never mind. The bird was correct. Okay, so Gio, you choose the draft order. Who gets draft? Which one would you want? Do you want C, B, or A?
I would like A.
So you get A, so that you get the first overall pick with the 2 vetoes, as well as pick 13, 12, 6, and then, of course, 1. Who do you want to be drafter B?
You.
Okay, I will be drafter B, and then therefore, Ray, you are drafter C. Okay, so to reconfirm, that drafter so let's update our doc here to be able to make sure that we're on the same page. So Ray, you're going to be starting off our draft order. So not to kind of just throw you right in the deep end here, but I want to be able to get you started here. So how we're going to be able to do this again is you're going to make your selection. We are going to go around the barn to talk about your selection, either we're pro or con, before we jump into the vetoes, and then I'll take the reins from you after we all have our say, which then I'll ask, of course, in this situation, Gio, if you want to use your veto, me, if I want to use my veto, and then if B, Ray, you will select again. Gentlemen, are we both good to go here?
Sounds good, man.
I think so.
Okay, with that being said, Ray, please make the 15th overall selection in the EPL Player of the Season draft on House of Footy.
So, a lot of responsibility here, and I hope I don't disappoint. This player might surprise you guys, but I'm going to have to go with none other than Declan Rice. He is a standout player for West Ham who have gotten themselves, I know we're not talking only about the EPL, but have gotten West Ham into the Conference League final. More recently, he's been involved with the goals as well. 4 goals, 2 assists, 35 out of 36 starts in the Premier League, and has been definitely not just a leader by being captain, but also one of the most important players on that West Ham team. So, yeah, 24 years old. I think he's turning 25 this summer. Should be a big move. I think on transfer market, he's rated at around 80 to 100 million pounds. And so, yeah, pretty self-explanatory. Declan Rice is my choice for 15.
So, Gio, you go first? Gio, how do you feel about Declan Rice being number 15?
Not bad. I think being at 15 is okay. I don't think he's top 11 in my books, which I think you all agree. So, yeah, I think that's a fair pick. That's good to have on your bench. So yeah, 15 sounds great for Declan Rice, man.
Fair enough. I do. Spoiler, he's not on my draft board, but I don't think it's egregious to have him in the top 15. A lovely player, kind of what he's able to do, show this season. You see the progression of his game, where he really started off as a center half. That's kind of he was pigeonholed as, and then really kind of as a defensive midfielder, where you see him grow into a little bit more of an offensive role, kind of joining in the attack. So you've seen season over season where he's able to kind of show more of his football talent, and the season definitely has been his best thus far, and why he's being kind of looked at to be able to make a potentially big move this summer. Knock on wood, probably in all likelihood to one of our teams. It seems like the reports are going to be. I'm always pigeonholed to the Arsenal fan, but that's neither here nor there. Overall, I think it's a great selection. And I'm not going to use my veto. Gio, are you going to use one of your 2 vetoes?
Not yet. Too soon in the game.
So hey, you just want to be able to make sure if you don't use them, you lose them. Next time we do this, it's not as if you carry them over. So that's one thing to again. If you want to, just be a perfectionist, like, hey, don't need them. Let's say, it is what it is. But so that's going to confirm it here for us. Where under the first pick, the 15th overall in the EPL Player of the Season draft, is Declan Rice. So now the ball gets shifted over to me, and I'm going to make my selection. And my selection, it's a little bit more of a. I'm going to apologize up front because this is a little bit hot takey because I know he's probably all likely going to be picked. I don't want him to be picked high for a plethora of reasons. I still feel like he deserves to get picked. So it's a little bit of strategy of why I'm taking this player now. And I'm going to take Rodri from Manchester City. The reason being is one, it's him. How dare you talk about Scottish people like that? So I'm taking this low. So that's my bias up at the front. Second, but in reality, he is definitely a linchpin and one of the players of the season, in my opinion, given to his importance to this Manchester City team. He doesn't bag in a whole lot of goals. He's not really a creative player, but what he does in terms of shielding the back line in counterattack, being able to be so comfortable in possession, Spain at the World Cup playing as a center half, even this past weekend playing as a center half for Man City, you can see the type of player he is. I think if I recall correctly, he has the most passes in the Premier League this season. So he's done a fantastic job in orchestrating this Manchester City midfield. But he's not as vital, in my opinion, as a lot of other players on the team, and why I don't kind of rate him highly in comparison to a lot of the other players I have on my draft board or had this individual season. So that's the reason for my selections in regards to Rodri here. Just to be able to confirm, though, of course, this season he's had only 2 goals, 6 assists, not his greatest return in the Premier League thus far. Last year he had 7 banging a goal. So again, I don't think it's necessarily his best season, but he's still such a quality player where he deserves to get picked, but not too high. And that's why I picked Rodri. Ray, how do you feel about Rodri being selected? Again, don't tell me you're going to use your veto, but how do you feel about him being selected?
No, rightly so. Should be selected. I think one of the standout players for the season. As well, on top of sort of that passing stat, I think you mentioned, Mac, definitely up there in terms of passes completed, but also pass success over 90%, which, hey, you can get 90% over 90% pass success in the EPL. That's credit to you. But not just and yeah, we can talk about he hasn't scored that many goals, and he there's all other important players for Man City as well. But I have to mention that goal against Bayern Munich that he scored, left foot top bins, that in itself, just class. But yeah, I'm good with that. Gio?
Yeah, no, I'm great. I mean, I would have had him a little higher based on what he brought to the table for Man City, being that very almost tree-like, very grounded, knew what his assignments were. Those type of players usually don't get the recognition they deserve. But hey, it's good to have him on the team, and I'm okay with having him there. Although I I had him personally in higher up, but for you to pick
Yeah.
him,
Yeah.
that's great. That's great. That's great. As long as he's there to the party, I'm happy. I'm happy.
So with that being said, I guess to kind of spoil that, do either of you, Ray, would you want to use one of your veto for my selection of Rodri at number 14?
So I had him slightly higher up, but no, as long as he's on the board, he's not in my top 10. So yeah, I'm good with that.
Gio, would you like to use your veto here?
Not quite yet.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so that confirms and locks in Rodri. This is my favorite pick of the draft. Guaranteed at number 14, keep him that low. Again, if I was 15, he would have been taken then, no lie. With that being said, we're going to hand the reins over to Gio to make his first selection and the 13th overall selection in the Premier League Player of the Season draft.
With the 13th overall pick, I would like to bring on board Alex Isak. I think. Look, I don't think he cracks the 11. But I think what he brought to the table, especially in the latter half of the season for Newcastle, and being a very integral piece for him to take on players constantly and put in great balls for the other guys, Callum Wilson, Murphy as well. They really benefit off that, and they really benefit off his pace, his attack, while Miggy came back from injury and not playing to that pre-World Cup form. I thought he was huge for them. Continue the success, keeping that top 4 spot. So you kind of have to give him credit there. 10 goals in 27 matches. It was great. It was great. I think he had a great season. When it's all said and done. So I love him at this spot. I don't know how you guys feel about him, but Do let me know.
Ray, how do you feel about Alexander Isak being the 13th overall pick?
Ooh, hey, I love Isaac. He's definitely changed and added another piece to that Newcastle offense, and you could actually make an argument that he's the reason why they've been so much more free flowing up front. Personally, I did not actually have him in my 15, but love to have him on that, and definitely can't argue against him. I mean, if he was, for example, in my top 10, then I may have used my veto, but I'm okay with that. I do like Isaac. What about you, Mac?
So I'm torn here. Okay, first to talk about Isak. I think phenomenal player, fantastic signing for Newcastle. Kind of what they needed and what they've been able to unlock between him and Callum Wilson, having the either or in some cases playing them together in situations and still being successful, shows for me. Even though Callum Wilson has the higher goal tally, I think he's second. Callum Wilson is in goals per 90. But Isak for me is really the straw that stirs the drink in terms of their attacking sense this season. Almiron had a great start. Isak's what really carried them through for the second half, in my opinion, given his ability to play on the wing, play a striker, still contribute in all aspects, and a phenomenal player at that. I agree with Ray. He wasn't part of my 15. He wasn't on my draft board. And my thought process is, are we all going to be in a position? Okay, sorry. That's a spoiler. I apologize. Ray, did you want to use your veto here on Alexander Isak?
I do not.
Okay. See, you, but I don't. This is very difficult because for me, are we going to get to the pick point in the draft where between like 8 to 9, we'll all have the same players and we're just not going to end up using that? Because personally, I actually had 2 Newcastle players ranked ahead of him in my draft order. So, this is tough. This is tough. I'm going to be shy. I'm going to hold on to my veto for now, but
Like that.
I'm locked in terms of, watch this. It's going to be a quick fire round to be on me for afterwards. So we're going to lock in Alexander Isak as the 13th pick in this draft. What we're going to do now, though, is we're going to take a little bit of a break. We're going to come back and continue on with the rest of the selections between pick 12 to 7. So please do stay with us. Welcome back to House of Footy, and we're going to be continuing our Player of the Season EPL draft. We've already made 3 selections, with Ray picking 15th, Declan Rice, myself picking Rodri with the 14th pick, and Gio picking Alexander Isak with the 13th overall pick. We're going to continue on with our snake draft, and the next selection, of course, will be Gio. I want to be able to reconfirm again, all vetoes are still on the board, so Gio still has 2. Ray and I both still have 1. Okay, so everything's fully loaded here. We feel very American. Now, so Gio, give us your 12th overall selection in the draft.
Now, I can play this strategically because I might want you guys to use a veto early on. So I will, and I think with the 12th overall pick, I will select an Arsenal player, an Arsenal defender at that, and I will say William Saliba. Now, you guys might think, there's better defenders out there, but there probably are. But the integral part that he's played with him in the starting lineup and him out of the starting lineup, the difference visually is already very apparent. And I think his injury since March against Sporting, and him being out of the lineup, it's very clear that they were in desperate need of a true center back. Obviously, Rob Holding was not it. Kior also, he was it for a couple of games, but wasn't it for the majority of the games. And you saw it, and the eye test, it didn't pass because they just weren't good enough without another true center back paired with Gabriel. So I think in terms of just the integral part that he played, he deserves to be on the list based on sheer importance to a club. I think if he was in this team from March, they could have definitely picked up more points, and the race definitely would have been a lot closer and could have possibly ended differently. So with my 12th pick, it is William Saliba.
Ray, how do you feel about Saliba being the 12th overall pick?
I'm not upset. I did disclose to you guys I don't have any defenders in my list, but like you said, very integral part to that Arsenal team this year. 22 years old. This is his first full season at Arsenal and will only get better. So honestly, I can't disagree with that. That's the only thing I can say because Gio already said pretty much everything that I would say. So, Mac?
In regards to, I think I do love the pick. I think the only kind of unfortunate part in terms of him being part of the conversation is the injury. Where if he was playing for the rest of the season, maybe he would be kind of in the ether, on the Twitter sphere, people talking about the type of player it was. Whereas for the large portions at the beginning of the year, he was always kind of in that conversation of being kind of one of, if not the best center half in the Premier League, in that conversation where Van Dijk was not having the greatest year. No one else really, of course, it's hard to kind of have other players stand out from other teams in that position. But the first goal he scored, if I recall correctly, I think it was against, I want to say Brentford, when he does like the left foot finish across, and you just have Zinchenko's fate, like dropping to his knees in exasperation. In the Premier League, I think he's third in pass completion as well. So in terms of his ability on the board, a ball is phenomenal defensively. He's had mistakes, but he's young, as Ray highlighted. So I can understand why he was on your pick here, Gio. I did have in my selection spoiler an Arsenal player in the same spot, so I'm not upset to replace an Arsenal player with another one. So overall, I like to pick quality player, and someone 3 years from now, if we look back on this, you'd be very happy. I feel like that you picked him here. Even though, again, we're just doing it for this individual season. So, absolutely love Saliba. Great selection. With that being said, Ray, would you like to use your veto?
I'm good. I'm still good.
Oh, can you just use yours? Because then I don't feel bad about using mine. Shoot. Okay, so I'm not going to use mine as well because I'm going to allow this to continue. So, okay, we're going to allow this to continue of no vetoes being played here. Okay, so
Solid.
So that locks it in. William Saliba is the 12th pick, and the next selection is mine. Again, this is just not great. This is not great here. I have a couple different ways I can go about this because, again, as Ray just highlighted, he kind of fed us some information where he doesn't have any defenders. So do I pick a defender here to flush out the veto, or do I select, as kind of some draft managers do, the best player available? This is the 11th pick. This is the player I had as 11th. He may... Ooh. Okay. No, do I want to go for... No, okay. You know, no, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go for probably the only person here that we even joked about, in all likelihood, that might have a little bit of quid on this game here. He's a striker, plays for Brentford, and I think if I remember correctly, he was in the top... I think the second in goals in the Premier League this season, or third, behind Kane and Erling Haaland, if I remember correctly. I'm going to go with Ivan Toney, the gambling man himself. Odds on, he was going to make this list somewhere. Is there another betting pun that I'm missing here, boys? I just want to be able to make sure. Overall, in regards to his individual season for Brentford, to give him kind of his flowers, to give him the credit, there's such a bright spot in this league where probably the smallest stadium in the Premier League, the impact that they've had, their play style, without him, and my argument will be is without him, and he's probably bet himself, but without him, I doubt they're in the Premier League in a lot of cases, and it probably would be dropping out because a lot of their other key signings that they made in the offseason, such as Damsgaard, who I thought would be a great signing, hasn't really worked out. It's really been him or nothing, where he's put in the ability to put the ball in the back net, be the key player that kind of draws all the attention to free up players like Mbomo and other players around him to be able to create goals and opportunities. But the key part is if they can just create one or two chances for him to be able to get on the score sheet, they're going to be in a position to be very, very successful. So he's had 20 goals, 4 assists. His best season in the Premier League last year, only having 12 goals, so he's improved. So a great step up in kind of caliber for him. Interesting part would be, do you kind of knock him for the fact that he's going to be suspended for 8 months and is going to miss a couple games in the Premier League season, at least here? I don't, because we're just basing it off this year. So overall, I feel like it's a fair selection to have him here, and I'm going to take him with the 11th overall pick. Gio, how do you feel about the Ivan Toney player rumored to be linked with Manchester United at several times these last couple off seasons? How do you feel? Him going 11th.
I love it because I actually jokingly said that I would take Ivan Toney. He was actually on my list, so for you to take him saves me a veto. I appreciate that greatly. I should have just bet on it. I should have just bet on it. Like I should have done him a favor. done him some justice and bet on it. But no, I love the pick. I think he definitely deserves the credit. Apart from the out of football stuff, when he's on the pitch, he's quite lethal, and I'm sure teams will still look into a possible way to sign him and kind of stash him away to get him at a deal. So yeah, no, I don't think he's too worried about not playing football. He's definitely be continued training. So great player, fantastic, love the pick.
Ray, how do you feel about the pick?
Personally did not have him in my list, which is maybe interesting to you guys, but no, I do like the pick. Scored 20 goals. Brentford as a team have 57, so I think he's probably just has around 40% of the goals, 30 to 40% of the goals. But my math is mathing. Hey,
Just over 30%, yeah.
What else can you ask for this player? It feels like he's too big for that team at the moment. No disrespect to Brentford, and so yeah, one of the like you said, third in terms of goals scored in the league, and yep, definitely standout player for Brentford. If he wasn't there, I don't think they would be in the top half. So that pretty much sums it up. I'm okay with that. I like that pick.
So Ray, you're okay with it? You're not going to be using your veto?
That's correct.
Shucks. And Gio, you've kind of already spoiled the fact that you're comfortable, you're sitting pretty, where you don't want to use your vetoes here. So This then that locks Vintonian at the 11th pick, and then we're going to be continuing on with Ray, who's going to have on the turn 2 picks in a row. Ray, who are you taking 10th overall?
So I'm sure you guys have been itching to use that veto button. So let me bring it up now. With my 10th pick, or the 10th pick of the draft, I'm going to select Man U player Bruno Fernandes. Bruno Fernandes is a player who has, for the league, based on the stats that I've been able to pull up, 32 big chances created, one more than Kevin De Bruyne, the player with the most assists this season. 113 chances created in total, leading the league. 7 goals, 8 assists, not the greatest return for Man U, but still a decent return. We saw the game today. He had his goal, his involvement as well. So I think we do sometimes knock him for what he does when the ball's not around him, but cannot deny the fact that he is integral, I think, to the way Man U have been playing so far. Also involved in a couple of goals in other competitions, such as the Europa League and the various competitions that Man U have gone far in. So, yeah, it might be a ploy to get some vetoes, but I think he's definitely in my top 10. So I'm going to choose him as my 10th pick.
Gio, how do you feel about Bruno Fernandes being the 10th overall pick potentially?
I don't love it. I'll be honest with you. As much as I love Man U, I don't love it. I really don't. If I'm going to be completely honest, if I had to have someone at 10,
okay,
it would be a different player.
Give your plaudits to him in terms of his season. How do you feel about at least the season of Bruno Fernandes this year?
His goods are great, but his bads are beyond bad. Like a guy like Jadon Sancho tell you to stop moaning. A guy who's been through so much more than you have. Like, get a grip, brother. Get a grip. I need you to get a grip if you want to wear that captain's armband. But no, I agree to the sense, to the fact that yes, he is integral. But when you're looking at this draft and looking at top 10 players now, is he more integral than other players to their squads? And that's arguable. That's very arguable.
Thank you. Before you do anything, I think I'm most of the way there with you, Gio here, and Ray. You knew that this was definitely a ploy. I appreciate it 100%. For me, he doesn't make my top 15. I don't even think he's in the top 2 of Manchester United players in the Premier League this season. So by that logic and the other good teams that are around him, for me, he's not there. to his credit, when he plays well, I think Manchester United are able to reach a different level, a different tier. When he's playing good football, it's very difficult for them to lose because by the abundance of opportunities, and I think Ray highlighted that he's able to create for his teammates, it's the odds are they're going to score enough goals to be successful at that point. The problem is for me this year, there's been too many low periods where he hasn't played well, where other players have been the reason why the Manchester United finished in a Champions League position, in my opinion. But I do feel like on his day, he is one of the best Premier League players. But the problem is he has not that many of those days this year thus far. And again, there's still potential to see. I know he definitely... And I think listeners of the podcast probably know he's one of my most hated players for sure. But I enjoy hitting him because he plays for Man U, so it just makes it easy and fun at the same time, you know? But with that being said, Ray has nominated Bruno Fernandes as the number 10 pick. Gio, are you going to use one of your 2 vetoes?
Yes, I will have to use one.
Yes. Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, so what it does, it knocks Bruno Fernandes back into the pool of players, and Ray, you're back on the board to make another 10th pick. Thank you, Gio. So Gio, now you only have 1 veto. You have joined the Ray and Matt position of only have 1 veto. Ray, not to put the pressure, it's balls back in your court. I hope you I hope you know what you're doing here. You should have been ready to make a second pick, to be honest. So with that being said, Ray, for your second attempt at the number 10 draft spot, who is your pick?
I'm surprised. I thought you guys would have been okay with that one. And this one might actually be worse than.
Oh my days, Mac.
That's just. I'll use mine. Don't worry. I got you. Go ahead, Ray.
For 10th, we talked about. We have, I think, 2 strikers on the board so far. I'm going to bring up another striker. Ollie Watkins from Aston Villa has been a good player so far for the season. 14 goals, 6 assists. This Aston Villa is going up and up, and I think he's going to be a great asset to build around for Unai Emery going forward. Hey, you may agree, you may disagree. If you're looking at English strikers in terms of ranking, I think he's behind Harry Kane. I would actually put him over Ivan Toney as well because he can create and score for himself, which very, very similar, I think, in terms of what you can expect out of them. But I think he does have can offer that extra that Tony hasn't. And I think he's slightly younger as well. I think Tony's 28, and I think Watkins is. Sorry, let me just pull it up.
It's like 24, 24, I think. If you not put me on the spot.
My mistake. He is actually a year younger, 27. So.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Still, stand by that. He's been quite constant for Aston Villa, and yeah, that's my pick for 10th.
Gio, I'm gonna go first. I don't mind this as much as Bruno Fernandes, to be honest. I think he's definitely been a second half season player really since the World Cup. Unai Emery, everything prior to that, I think he gets a 0. And since then, if you give him a 9 out of 10, even if you average that out over the course of the season, 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10. So he's had his moments, but given how well they finished up, I'm not upset. And he was actually lower on my draft board than this. I thought maybe he wouldn't come up. So I'm overall okay with this. And spoiler, I'm not going to use my veto here. Gio, how do you feel?
God, I hate this pick. God, I hate this pick.
As a heads up, Ray has the next pick as well. So just want to make sure that you know.
Oh my God! I wish I saved my veto after hearing that one. Ollie Watkins, God damn it! I can't use my veto. I'll voice my opinion. I don't love the pick. I think there are 10 players easily above him. So I mean, yes, Villa finished at a great spot. Fantastic for the club. Very happy for them. But do I think he deserves to be on the top 10? No, I do not think he deserves to be on the top 10. But I will save my veto for the latter half of the draft. So, yeah, continue, please.
So what that does, that locks in Ollie Watkins to be the 10th player. So the 10th overall pick in the EPL player of the season draft for the House of Footy. But Ray, as I kind of spoiled there, you are on the turn here. So even though this is technically your second pick in a row that you're making, one only counted. So you have another try for the 9th overall pick. Are you going to pull another veto from one of us? We shall see. Ray, who is your 9th selection?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to pull up another veto from you guys because I'm running out of players, and this player was slightly higher on my list. Martin Odegaard. He's definitely, I think, top 10 in most influential players this season, and 15 goals, 8 assists. 24-year-old captain for Arsenal has stood out for them in periods where they really needed it, and can only improve. Arsenal have had a great season, and without, I think, them shifting and sort of sharing the captaincy between Xhaka and Odegaard has been quite important for them. So, yeah, needless to say, Martin Odegaard, top 10 for myself. Maybe some vetoes from you guys, but definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to save this all for later. We're going to speed this up here. Okay, I'm using my veto. That's done. I have no more veto. Sorry, Gio. We'll talk about Odegaard later for sure.
Okay.
Right. Let's do this again, brother. Let's try this one more time. Martin Odegaard for me clearly should be higher. Like, so I'm going to have to veto that. I think it's clear. I'm upset. You did this to piss me off. I understand it. For the fourth, so now you're 4th pick in a row, but your second step now at number 9. Can we get who would be your 9th player once again?
So I think this one quote will be quite safe. I don't think you guys have much to say for this player, based on the quote unquote poor season he's had. Mohamed Salah has had not the greatest return for his season for Liverpool this season. I think he has 19 goals, 11 assists, which is still pretty good for a Premier League player. I don't think you guys can really argue he deserves to be in the top 10. I guess, as I mentioned, Liverpool, if he was, I think, a little more sharper in the periods where Liverpool were lacking goals, maybe could have been a little higher in the table. But still producing numbers, and really can't deny the fact that he's had a decent season as a Premier League player. I think a lot of us are basing it off of his history, where his numbers have kind of dwindled down this season. But yeah, that's my pick for number 9.
Absolutely, Gio. I apologize jumping in here again. I love that pick overall. I actually had him 7th on my draft board, so you picking him 9th isn't too far off for me. I do think he's being compared to his own excellent standards. He set the expectation. He's underachieved there, and you are correct in terms of, if you make the argument where if he has a little bit of a better season, they finish in Champions League and he vaults back up into being on more of the higher end of this draft. So that separation there is why he's, for me, not like in the top 5 theoretically, but in and around this area within the top 10 lower end makes sense for me. I'm happy with that as a selection. Gio, what are your thoughts on Mohamed Salah's year?
He definitely wasn't PFA Player of the Year, I'll tell you that much. But you know, I can't be too mad at the pick. I think he did score pretty key goals for Liverpool to still salvage the season that they had. So yes, that is important. I think with him, with the addition of Luis Diaz coming back later into the season, I think the both of them, you know, the pressure coming off him a little more, and having the defense focus on Luis Diaz a little more as well, definitely helped him. You know, play more free flowing football, have a little bit more freedom to do as he pleases. So yeah, I think that is a fair spot for him for sure.
Fair enough. So we're going to lock in this draft pick. Great. Thank you for this thrilling turn here on the draft here. 4 picks, 2 of them counted. 9th overall pick locked in for Mohamed Salah. Now it goes back to myself. I have the 8th overall pick, and a couple different ways to go about this. Theoretically, not theoretically, but literally right now I have 3 more picks left in this draft that I will be selecting. So I want to be able to make sure I do get someone on the board. And if need be, if I have to have a second round going at him later on, I will. So with that being said, I'm going to take the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Boulder, John Stones. Okay. For me, you both knew this was coming. You both knew. Come on, brother. For the people listening, both of them roll their heads at the exact same time. The key here is that the difference, and why I think he's so vital, is if you saw the difference. Sorry, I need to compose myself. Gio's face, it looks like he's all the yak. The key difference here is prior to him playing in this role, in terms of like kind of the false center half, Man City were in a lot of ways floundering. They weren't at Arsenal's level through the Premier League. Arsenal looked to be the best team. That transition of adding into the midfield, Pep Guardiola, bringing him in there, vault them in a position, something that we talked about in our last podcast, right? Since that change, they haven't lost a game in the Premier League. They had 17 wins and 4 draws, consistently outpossessing teams, consistently outchancing teams, as well as playing well enough defensively. And for me, if you would ask me who's the second most impactful Manchester City player this year, I would have taken John Stones out of everyone on the pool list. Given the difference of what he's had and the poor seasons everyone else has around him, as he's really been the differentiator of why they've been able to play well. Scored a couple of banger goals from John Stones. Like, that's, you gotta love to see it there. His ability to play in that midfield pocket as a center half, I think in a lot of cases is unparalleled, and I'd argue to say probably in the world, coming from a center half, being on the ball, comfortable in that position. No one in the world better at doing it, let alone just the Premier League. So that's my selection. Who wants to go first? Who wants to go first here? Ray,
Can I please I just have one question. I do want to go first as well.
Sure.
But my first question is, Gio, are you more upset that I picked Ollie Watkins, or are you more upset that Mac picked John Stones at 8th?
Why is John Stones even up in this category? What, like?
17 wins, 4 draws since he played that position. It's undefeated, invincible stuff there. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
To give John Stones his flowers, though, he has been playing quite well toward when he sort of, like Mac mentioned, switched on to that midfield position. The Man City defense never really looked as sure since sort of he shifted over, and it made sort of more sense with having and we can talk more to it when we review like the end of the season, but having him as a makeshift center mid, but having his defensive quality as well, I think has been influential for that Man City team in the way that they're able to keep possession, be solid defensively, and not just not worry about defense at all, which you could argue was sort of their weakness early in the season. Big influence for them. So I'm okay with that, Gio.
You're okay with? All right, man. Yeah, I just got a migraine, so yeah, I'm gonna have to leave the recording, boys. But no, I absolutely hate it. But I have to pocket. I have to pocket this last veto. Absolutely do not love this pick. If you put him in the lower of the top 10 or just before the top 10, absolutely, I think he deserves to be there. But to be this high, I think is shocking.
Thank you. I appreciate that. With that being said, Gio kind of spoiled there the fact that he wasn't going to use his veto there. Of course, my selection, and I don't have veto anyway, so it's moot point. Ray, you still have your veto. Are you going to play it for John Stones at number 8?
I'm good. I'm okay with that. I'll live with that.
I'll live happily too. With that being said, John Stones is locked in as the 8th overall selection in the EPL Player of the Season draft. And kind of to finish up before we take another break here, we're going to finish up with our 7th pick. And Gio, you're back on the board. Again, for the turn here, for 2 picks in a row, we'll break in between. What are you looking at for the 7th overall selection?
Should I just throw this out there to sort of stir the pot a little? Maybe get a veto from Ray, or maybe, turn Mac's face a little red. At the number 7 spot, I actually have Bukayo Saka.
Okay, talk about Bukayo Saka.
Obviously, I thought he had a fantastic season where Arsenal finished. They're ahead of schedule. Everything is phenomenal. But when we saw the lack of facilitation and the way teams sort of defended him in order for him to not receive the ball. Yes, that's a showing of how good he can, like how good he is, that teams want to defend a certain way so it minimizes his touches. But how does he help off the ball at that sense? I think he still needs work there, but I think in terms of creating goals for others, I think he's very good. But I just think, again, if I had to list 6 players that I think are better than him and that are more integral to their teams, then yeah, I can name 6 players. But I think he definitely deserves the recognition. I think I only have him here because I think Arsenal can still score goals without him in a sense. Yes, it's a little bit more of a struggle, but I think they're well equipped enough that they can still score goals without Bukayo Saka. But again, I have him at 7.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. In regards to that, for me personally, of course, I don't have veto, so it's a moot point. So I'm just going to talk about the positives for Saka. 13 goals, 11 assists. He scored 2 from the spot, so he's done decently well there. But there were opportunities where he could have scored and kind of. I felt like it speaks to how good of a season he's had, where there still feels like there's so much room to improve in a lot of different aspects of his game. Definitely a linchpin. Arsenal fans call him their star boy. Pure quality this year. I think if you would ask who is the most important Arsenal player, I think he's tied, in my opinion, for the season. And then with them finishing second in the Premier League, long stretches being first, I think it's fair for him to be high up. I argue would have him higher. But overall, a phenomenal player. Great to still see him from the opportunity to prove, and lovely to see him to get picked. Ray, what are your thoughts?
You guys covered everything basically, but even I had this comment when Arsenal were hot on fire in the Premier League. If Arsenal did win the league, I think he would have won the PFA Player of the Year. I think he, along as one of the other Arsenal players who I know we're not really going to mention, at least I don't think, Martinelli, the most improved players of the season, the sort of the improvement that they had since last season to this season. You can't even recognize them, and definitely an integral part for Arsenal. I had him slightly higher, but to see his name pop up and the recognition that you guys gave him, I'm completely fine with that. So, Bukayo Saka, I'm good with that.
So you're not going to use your veto, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so with that being said, that locks in Bukayo Saka as the 7th overall selection in the EPL Player of the Season draft. Like I said, we're going to take a quick break here and come back with our final 6 draft picks. So please do stay with us. Welcome back to House of Footy. We're going to be continuing our EPL Player of the Season draft. We had just finished an exciting round there with Gio selecting Bukayo Saka way too early at number 7, but that's neither here nor there. We're going to continue on. Gio was on the turn, so he's going to get the back-to-back pick here and make the 6th overall selection for us. Gio, who you got?
So, because I know Mac already used his veto.
So now just troll Mac time? Okay, I see. Okay. It's fine. It's fine.
Hey, this is a game at the end of the day. So
he's taking Bruno Fernandes. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And I know Ray might want to hold on to his veto a little longer, just when we reach into that top 5. But with the number 6th overall pick, I am taking Marcus Rashford. So, again, he started off quite hot. I think 34 games, 17 goals. I think 5 assists, 4 or 5 assists.
Yeah.
Again, scoring a couple more in Europa as well. I think that's where the difference, the 6-7 difference I had for Saka and Rashford. Although it's not the English competition, I think just the contribution to the team wise, I think he just added a little bit more. Although there is the fact that we all agree that Marcus Rashford isn't the type of guy to track back, much like Bukayo Saka. I think a good defense is a great offense. So yeah, I have Marcus Rashford. I think he is quite deserving after a great bounce back season, and I think he deserves the flowers that he's about to receive. So yeah, Marcus Rashford, number 6.
Right. How do you feel about Marcus Rashford being the 6th overall selection?
So completely honest, I have him a 6 as well, so I have no arguments with that. But because Gio just spoke about him and gave him his flowers, you can tell it's such a big difference because off our pod, he mentioned last season that he wouldn't be surprised if Rashford maybe moved, but you can see how important he's been to this team, and really his hot streak was what kept Man U sort of in the top 4. And you can see when he picked up his injuries, when he wasn't in form, that Man U team lacked a lot of power up front, and that just goes to show you how important he was, and he has been for this Man U team this season. Came back today, which is great to see, and hopefully he is able to feature in the FA Cup final. And yeah, has had it, I think, his best season for Man U, and hopefully he can build up on that. So I'm good with that.
Absolutely. I love the selection. ironically enough, maybe I had in number 6 as well. It's lovely the trifecta there. It's love when we have the melding of minds here. For me, if you were to ask who is the MVP in turn kind of to their individual team, if you were to rank that, he's probably, in my opinion, second behind a player that we're probably going to talk about shortly. Where if without him for that long stretch, as Ray you highlighted, I don't know where they are on the table. I'll be honest with you. Going into the season, I had Manchester United. I think if you ask me my order, I had them 7th, and I feel like they would have been comfortably in that position if it wasn't for the step up Rashford had this season. He's been, without doubt, in my opinion, their most important player. And you can see how they've had a couple of missteps more recently in some games because he hasn't featured, where it really was Rashford or nothing in terms of scoring goals. So lovely pick, had him at that spot, completely okay. And that locks in. Sorry, I guess Ray, you kind of said it a little bit earlier. That you're not going to use your veto there, so that puts Marcus Rashford locking in at the 6th overall selection and moves me into number 5. So I'm in a tough spot here. I'll be honest with you, boys. So I had one player that, again, Saka I had higher in the list. I told you I actually had Stones in and around here earlier, but I took him early because I knew I would flesh out vetoes here and I'm going to have the opportunity to pick him again. So I'm in a position. I'm going to take someone deeper on my draft board because I feel like you both are going to come back and give this player their flowers in a moment. Okay. So who I'm going to select, I'm not happy about this, so I blame both of you. I'll put my cards on the table here. I'm going to select from Newcastle Bruno Guimaraes, right here for the selection. I think arguably, again, I had in terms of my overall 15, I had Kieran Trippier in my selections as well, but he was much further down the list. But arguably the most important player in regards to another top 4 finishing team locked in that position, either finishing 3 or 4 this year. He, in my opinion, has been their best player. 4 goals, 5 assists in the Premier League. He's really, as I said, the straw that stirs the drink in the midfield. He does such a great job defensively as well. Be able to make sure that he's protecting his back line. The best back line in the Premier League this season in terms of goals against. They played phenomenally well. He's a reason why in possession, every move that breaks out, unless it's a Trippier across, it's coming from Bruno, building up the play, linking to be able to make sure players like Trippier, Almiron on the right-hand side are able to kind of collect and play well. Or if a ball is being threaded through between Isak or Wilson, it's probably coming from him. And I know both of you have, I don't know if it's just to annoy me a little bit, to be honest, but you both have a kind of asphyxiation for Willock and maybe even Longstaff. You think that they're great players. They're not. He's probably carrying the most amount of dead weight in the Premier League in a midfield and doing such a great job of it. So for me, he's my number 5 selection. I think, and the scary part is they're only going to build better players around him, where next season I'd be surprised if he's, maybe that's not fair, 2 years from now, I'd be surprised if he's their best player, that they're just going to continue to build around him. Is exciting, and it'll be interesting to see how Newcastle progress going forward. But for this season, he's the 5th overall selection for me. Gio, how do you feel about that?
I love the player. See, the spot kind of throws me off, but I agree. Them finishing at 4, I guess.
3 or 4 potentially.
3 or 4 potentially. We don't know yet.
Right.
Definitely deserves a lot of credit for that. But I definitely would have loved to see him say under that Bukayo Saka spot, maybe where John Stones was. But again, we have to give him credit. It's not just about, players from, say, the regular top 6 teams that we normally talk about. But I think he had a fantastic season. When he was injured and he couldn't play, we saw the difference on the pitch. And I don't know who said Matty Longstaff's a great player. I don't know if I said that. I don't think I said that.
No. You like Willock.
Hey, tell him Willock because you hated Willock. So, that's the thing with that. But
fair enough.
No. I think Bruno Guimaraes definitely was the better Bruno in the Prem this year. And he definitely deserves his flowers.
Great, don't be surprised.
Like again, having him at 5, I think is tough. Maybe like 6, 7. Because I personally, I think I can name 4 players above him quite easily. But I'm not mad at it. Would I have him lower? He was definitely lower on my list. I'll say that. But yeah, I definitely think he deserves a lot of credit this year.
Thank you. Ray, how do you feel about that selection? Before you spoil if you're going to use your veto or not, because you still have one, as does Gio.
Yeah, can't really knock him. He's definitely a different option and add something different to that very big, very strong Newcastle team. Adds kind of a little more finesse, even though he's kind of more of like a destroyer for that team. And so that's saying something. In a team where he's supposed to be this destroyer, he does have that finesse still, and so it shows sort of his range in game. I'm not saying I love the pick, but yeah, I would have also had him probably a little bit lower, and so I do agree with Gio. But still, very very important player for Newcastle, and I'm interested to see how they're going to build around him.
So, with that being said, Ray, do you want to use your veto?
I would not like to use my veto.
Good choice.
I
Good
know it's
choice.
getting late. I know it's getting late, but I do want to see how you guys finish up the last couple picks.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
That puts you in a position where if you don't use your veto now, you're either using your veto on the second or first overall pick. That's to be able to clarify that. That being said, you've made that selection. Gio, are you going to use your remaining veto?
Absolutely not.
Okay, fair enough. That locks in Bruno, as the number 5 overall selection in this draft. That being said, this puts Ray on the draft board. You are on the clock, my good sir. Please select the 4th overall selection for us.
We spoke about him already. Martin Odegaard. I had him slightly higher, but I know you guys had him in your top 10 as well. So Martin Odegaard, again, Arsenal captain this season, 15 goals, 8 assists. What a return for him I think his first year as captain, Mac, first full season at the very least. So yeah, stood out at very important parts of the season for Arsenal as well. So that's my pick for number 4.
Gio, how do you feel about that selection? I did cut you off earlier when we talked about Odegaard, so you didn't give your Odegaard take. So, all right, how do you feel?
I like me personally. I would have him. I don't want to say where I would have him. I'll say where I would have him. I'd have him in the top 3, to be honest. I think there's another person that deserves to be in the 4. Because again, we saw how integral he was when he was on and off the pitch. Visibly noticeable. They were crying out for a midfielder that could kind of generate offense, thread needles. And the first game back, we saw him thread needles to the guys and them benefiting from it. So I think him, and early on we weren't believers, but Mac was a believer. I'll give Mac his flowers here too. Early on, had they had won the Prem, him and Bukayo Saka would have been up for PFA Player of the Year. Yeah, no, I definitely think he's in this realm, but I would definitely want him definitely higher. But Mac.
So you both already said everything. I again, I don't veto, so it doesn't matter. I had him second, and I think if Arsenal do win the Premier League, I think if you ask Arsenal fans, they vote for Saka because of the fact that he's going to be the homegrown player in the team, who's been the more impactful player this season. Whereas I think if you kind of take a step back and ask everyone else, it would have been Odegaard, because he, similar to Bruno Guimaraes, who used this analogy again, he's the straw that stirs the drink, where if they're going to create opportunities, it's really fed through him initially to set up all the players in front of him. And I would argue in some cases he's the most irreplaceable player, because the drop off to him to Fabio Vieira is quite drastic in my opinion, whereas you do have more flexibility with a Trossard or Martinelli to be able to play on the wing on either side. So I think he, being the captain, being the leader, the tough part is in these last couple of games, highlighting one against Man City and one against Nottingham Forest, where he's had those key errors, which led to opposition goals, which either led to Nottingham Forest winning the game and closing off the Premier League, or Man City be able to kill the game. I think it was their 3rd goal in the Man City game. So he's had moments where it hasn't gone well, fair. But I think if you would ask me, given encompassing everything throughout the season, what he's been able to do on and off the ball, on and off the pitch. He would have been my number 2 selection. So I'm not upset that he ended up going this high, and why I vetoed so early, because I would have had him higher, like I said. So I dragged him as far as I could. With that being said, Gio, are you going to use your final veto here on that selection?
No, I'm not gonna.
So that puts Ray back on the board for your final selection and your 3rd overall pick. Please give it to us, Ray.
Yeah, so pretty much my top 3 is here. And if you guys have a different, it's gonna be a veto. My 3rd player, just putting him ahead of Odegaard, Kevin De Bruyne. 7 goals, 18 assists, and yeah, he had a period of time where he wasn't really playing as much in the Premier League, but definitely still a standout player when he does play for Man City, regardless of competition. And on his day, and for the last couple of seasons, it's something that I've continued to say: best midfielder in the world. So pretty self-explanatory. He would be number 3 for me. That's my pick.
I love that selection. I don't know if I would necessarily would have had him this high personally, but I do think he's a quality player. Not his best season, but still you can see he just oozes quality, the ability that he has with the ball, ability to create for his teammates, even kind of what he does defensively in the press as well is absolutely vital. So lovely player. Happy that he was selected. Like I said, I wouldn't have him this high, but happy he was selected. I don't have veto, so it's moot point here. Gio, how do you feel about the selection? And when you're finished with that, you can wrap up and give us if you're going to use your veto or not.
Yeah, no, I would definitely have him in the kind of 3-4 spot. That's kind of the person I was kind of looking for Ray to pick, hopefully. But again, having him here 3-4, it's not a huge difference. Again, the way he's able to score key goals, the way he's able to, score free kicks, the way he's able to facilitate, I think is a complete package player, and arguably he'll be one of the best midfielders to don the Prem when it's all said and done. So yeah, no, definitely a very good season for them, and still a lot to play for, clearly. So no, I'm not mad at the pick, and I will not be using my veto here.
Excellent. So this puts us in a position where we have 2 picks remaining, and I have the 2nd overall selection here. That does lock in, of course, Kevin De Bruyne at number 3. To reiterate, going into, and I should have done this earlier, I apologize. I want to go back through the list of all the draft picks that I've gone through before we do wrap up with our final 2 picks here. So number 15 through Ray went Declan Rice. Number 14, myself, picked Rodri. Number 13 from Gio picked Alexander Isak. Number 12, Gio went back-to-back picking William Saliba. 11, myself picking Ian Toney. Ray picking Ollie Watkins as number 10, as well as number 9, Mohamed Salah. Myself picking number 8, John the Legend Stones. Gio then going with Bukayo Saka for number 7. To then round up top 6, Gio had selected Marcus Rashford. Myself picking Bruno Guimaraes at number 5. Number 4, Martin Odegaard from Ray. And our most recent selection was Kevin De Bruyne from Ray once again. This puts us, again, 2 picks. We still have 2 vetoes on the board, both from Ray and Gio. So this puts me in a position where I can have a little bit of fun here, boys. Because we don't know who the number 1 pick is. So the question is, how much do you really like? I think we do. I think we know here, Gio, who the number 1 pick is. If you, so that's the thing. Do I think Gio's going to make the right selection, or he's going to go full hatred villain mode here? This is the interesting part for me. So I could just make back selections that I know you're both going to veto, and then Gio could pick the right selection. So I'm going to do that because I think it's a little bit fun. I'm surprised this player wasn't picked here. I wouldn't have him here. I'm expecting a veto. I'm going to look at Casemiro from Manchester United. The reason being, again, what I would say he would be in this position or I had him actually, I think 9th overall on my board, but I'm going to pick him here anyway. The reason being is because he would be higher if he didn't have those red cards. He's not in Spain anymore, so he can't get away with all those fouls. It's unfortunate, but there are rules that you have to follow. You just can't buy your way through, and that's a little bit tough. His impact for Manchester United, for me, he's over-exceeded my expectations in terms of the quality of the player that he's able to bring. And again, I'm going to use the argument here, the drop-off. Without him, in that midfield. I don't know what happens because when he was away through any of the red card games, when he was away for suspension, the drop off from the performance of Manchester United was just drastic. He's able to contribute goals as well, assists, get on balls in the box, be able to score some headers, and just the potential of not playing either Fred or McTominay in games for Manchester United is a reason why I feel like they've had a arguably very successful season. So I'm going to make that my number 2 selection. Do either of you want to talk about Casemiro for a second, or do you just want to toss a veto at me right now? What are we doing here?
Okay.
Come on, Ray.
Okay,
Come
Joe,
on.
you have to use it because you're
Let's
the
go.
first pick. I can't use it because you used to have a pick.
Wait. No.
You could veto.
Who I'm gonna pick?
Neither of you could veto. That's also an option. Neither of you could veto.
I'm gonna firstly talk about Casemiro. I completely agree. Really changed and allowed Man U, sort of gave them time. And what I mean by that is really came in and that big problem that they had in midfield temporarily solved it. Whether that's going to be a future problem that they're going to look to him to solve again, not sure. But as Max mentioned, without him on the team, you can tell that he's a big miss. With him on the team, they look like a different beast and could now that they made Champions League could continue to build upon. So that being said, I will use my veto on this one because obviously I have another player in mind. But
Fair.
Mac.
Okay, so you've used your veto here. So Gio, you have the next pick and you have a veto. So you're not going to veto yourself. So do I pick another player on the board that I'm going to give you no choice but to veto? That's the interesting part here. Shall I continue? What's the time? How long have we been in the podcast? That's the real selection here. You know what? It's okay. We've been going long enough. I'll continue on here. I'm going to pick the legend, the guy that Gio hopes goes to Manchester United in the coming off season. I'm going to go with Harry Get the Strap Kane. Captain of England, leader of Tottenham, Gio's favorite team. Lovely to see him taking here. Again, if you were to argue most valuable, for me, he has been the most valuable to his team. Because again, using along the lines of Casemiro for the Manchester United midfield and even Marcus Rashford for the offense of Manchester United. Without Harry Kane, Spurs are Chelsea. I think that's kind of how porous they have been this year, where they would be in that conversation in terms of point totals. If you were to take away, I know it's difficult considering everything that's gone on in the Premier League this season. If you were to take away Gio's, in all likelihood, number 1 pick, unless he completely trolls us, you're talking about one of the best seasons in Premier League history, arguably individually, in terms of goal contributions, in terms of assists, what he's able to provide on and off the ball. Without him, Son is not the player that he is. Kulusevski's not the player that he is. None of the players around him really get any flowers, and no manager would ever be able to keep a job for Tottenham. So overall, I think Harry Kane is an easy selection with players that are remaining, and happy to pick him second overall. Gio, do you want to use your veto for that? How do you feel about that pick?
No, I love the pick. Absolutely love the pick. Look, 66 of Tottenham's total goals. He had 28 of them. Look, without him, those 38 goals, he assisted on too. So, how else are they going to get their offense from? He drops deep, becomes a facilitator, becomes a midfielder essentially. Able to push the pace, able to thread needles, and able to still put in 28 goals, all while playing in a burning barn. Like that, the mental psyche to continue to do that week in, week out is beyond impressive to me. So absolutely love the pick. I think he's well deserving of number 2. And granted, I think last year's Golden Boot total was around 26. No, if I'm wrong.
We'll take a look, but keep going.
If I'm wrong, so for him to almost match that or to beat that, and the only person to really beat that had a phenomenal season and played with elite of elite players, A squad and B squad. It should be nothing to be ashamed of. I think he had a fantastic season, and I think he's due for a move if he wants to achieve more as a footballer. So I definitely love the pick. So Ray,
Yeah, I think that the previous winners were Salah and Son with 23 goals each. So
Yes.
he would have definitely beat that. You guys said it all. He was my number 2 pick. And the only thing else I can add is with his weak ankles, 37 games in the Premier League, started all 37.
Wow.
Availability is something that actually I think a couple of those ones in sort of spots 2 to 5 may have some questions about. He's been a great servant to that club and has had one of his best seasons there. Not can't be mad at that pick at all.
Fair enough. So with Gio, you still have a veto there. You've already kind of hinted that you're not going to be able to use it, right? You don't have your veto. That kind of locks us in with Harry Kane being the number 2 selection. With that being said, Gio, can you make the final selection with the first overall pick in the EPL Player of the Season draft?
I would love to. And it wouldn't be Gio if it wasn't a troll. So with the last overall pick, no league goals on my favorite team, I will gladly select Richarlison. Nah, just kidding, just kidding. Relax, relax. I think he came on and obviously smashed it. I know there's a viral clip of
Sorry, who are you selecting?
oh I'm getting there. There's a viral clip.
Okay, sorry.
There's a viral clip of someone talking about doing the Premier League a disservice to think that Erling Haaland wouldn't come in and smash in goals, simply being surrounded by the players he was surrounded by. He exceeded that and then some. He smashed records. He smashed Alan Sharon's record. Tied Thierry Henry on most goals in one season as a Premier League player as well. I think it was 44. I think the number
It's goals and assists. Goals and assists combined.
Goals and assists combined. Tied that record. I can't fathom what was going on in that person's head. But yeah, number 1 overall pick has to be, and I'm sure he's gonna sweep Premier League awards at the end of the season as well as he should. Number 1 pick is Erling Haaland.
Fair enough. Ray, before you jump in there to give your take, I think you're talking about, he was on, I think, it's Sky Sports Saturday, Rory Jennings saying that he will be lucky, he'll have a great season if he scores 15 goals. I think that's the clip that went around. And that it's disrespectful to the establishment if he to not pick a different player to finish kind of leading the goal scoring. So obviously, correct, he more than just doubled that tally. He destroyed records. I think my favorite stat, because again, 36 goals, 8 assists, lovely to see. In terms of, this is a stat that I thought was very fun. In terms of goals per 90 minutes, the average is 1.17. The second best was 0.87 goals per 90 minutes. So he's 0.30 above everybody else in the Premier League. So it's on average every 3 games he scored an extra goal. And the second place was Callum Wilson, who I think didn't finish in the top 3 in goals. I think he finished 4th. So in terms of his regularity of scoring goals, putting bundles of goals together, not having to play full games because he's already kind of smashed teams away with his goal tallies, where then you can have kind of the option of Julian Alvarez come on for you. Again, just shows how deep Man City are, where you can have the flexibility to play Erling Haaland for 60 minutes, destroy a team, and kind of rush from there. The analogy I like to use a lot, the comparison, is kind of, is it the 2016-17 season for Steph Curry with the Warriors where they broke the 73-9 record, where everyone talked about his minutes because didn't have to play over 30 minutes a game for that season, I think it was, or just slightly over, because they've already won the game by the 3rd quarter. It felt very similar to Erling Haaland here, where the team is so good, he's so good, he's the star among stars, and I think arguably this has probably been it's the best inaugural season, of course, without a doubt, of a player in the Premier League. But you want to have the conversation as the best individual season period in the Premier League, depending, of course, what happens with his career going forward. But I think that's fair to say, and clearly the number 1 pick. Ray, what are your thoughts?
Hey, you guys covered it all. I think it's still crazy that's that you just mentioned, Mac, and I had that as well. 1.17 goals per 90. That means he's expected to get at least 1 goal. At the very least. The next player, Callum Wilson, 18 goals in the Premier League, but he's missed a lot of games, and so that goal per 90 is kind of overstated because of the games that he missed. Whereas Haaland, even though he hasn't played every game, Mac mentioned it. He's been taken off in games where he could have got hat tricks or he could have scored more, and rested in games as well, and then also had injury spells. So that stat in itself is just crazy, and always goes back to the most important players on the pitch will always be the goal scorers, because the most difficult thing in football is to score goals, and he's done it without any problems. The scary thing is how many he'll score next season, because this was his first season, and now he's accustomed to it. It's just gonna get better. So yeah, definitely my number one pick, and no problems with me.
Perfect. So that there, anything else you want to talk about Erling Haaland? The last stat, again, he's not just the best Premier League striker; he's the best striker in the world. He leads with 36 goals in domestic season. It's the highest goal tally in all Big Five leagues as well. So overall, phenomenal player, phenomenal season. Gio, that's a fantastic selection. I think we all had him number one on our board, no matter how much you wanted to check for Starlerson. So that's fair enough there. But that wraps up our draft. So I just want to go through the order one more time here. Again, it's number 15, Ray selected Declan Rice. I selected Raji with the number 14 pick. Number 13, Gio select Alexander Isak. Number 12, Gio also selected William Saliba. Then on to myself picking Ivan Toney for the 11th pick. Ray rounded out with the 10th selection with Ollie Watkins. Number 9, to get into that top 10, he continued on with Mohamed Salah. Number 8, I picked John Stones. Number 7, Gio picked Bukayo Saka. Number 6, Gio also selected Marcus Rashford. Then back to myself picking Bruno Guimaraes with the number 5 pick. Number 4, Ray picking Martin Odegaard. Number 3, as well, Ray picking Kevin De Bruyne. Rounding out the top 2, Harry Kane selected by myself for number 2, like I had said. And Gio, with the most recent selection, number 1 overall, Erling Haaland. This concludes our podcast for today. If you had liked what you heard, please like and subscribe on our social medias. That's House of _Footy. Please comment on our YouTube channel for who you think made the worst pick in this draft. In addition, if you have any suggestions or general banter, please get in touch with us on our email, which is houseoffooty@hotmail.com. The next time you'll hear from us will be Monday when we review the final day of the Premier League season and really which team's going to get relegated. That's all we're really talk about right there, boys. So with that being said, I want to say thank you from Ray.
Peace out, guys.
And thank you from Gio.
John Stones was the worst pick. Good night.
No. See ya.